All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Okay, welcome back. Shane's like, what? Paralyzed. All right, kill that music.
The beginning of a journey that would take me around the world in search of an understanding of death. My friends thought me compulsive and insane, while others said I was a distorted fanatic. You will be witness to what I have discovered. May you be the jury.
Anyhow, one of my favorite movies. Anybody can identify that clip, I'll be amazed. No, really, I won't. All right, Jim Bob, you're back. You follow instructions well. That's good. Anyhow, it's amazing what you can find on the internet these days. You want to know about what this camera and this privacy fence, right? So let's talk about this for a second. I have a 2-story house, right? And I look out my back window, I can see over your privacy fence. And if your wife happens to be out there naked sunbathing, I might be looking out my back window from time to time, okay? That's just the way the world works. So if you put a camera on a stick or ride up a ladder, I would imagine that's going to be hard for somebody to claim that they thought that 6-foot fence completely ensconced their privacy, right? On the other hand, you could make out a case that your constant and unwielding desire to check out what the neighbors are up to constitutes a form of harassment all by itself. How do you feel?
Okay, I do want to clarify. I live on the backside of a mountain. We're surrounded by woods. I'm not in a development or anything. It was just laying out the scenario because I just always wondered, if you have an ordinance saying that a privacy fence can only be so high for whatever ordinance reason.
Right.
Yeah, Google Earth goes around with their 8.5-foot high cameras and puts it on the web for all to see.
Right, and that's an interesting question. And so that's why I say if they have no legitimate purpose in doing what they're doing, or no arguably, or the intrusion is sufficient, it may be able to be criminalized. So here's the reality. I mean, I get these phone calls. This is the phone call, typical scenario. My neighbor put up surveillance cameras on his house, but I know it watches my yard too. I don't like the fact that he has 24/7 of what I'm doing in my backyard. Right?
Move to the back of a mountain in the woods.
Well, right. And even there, who knows? I mean, the satellite can probably still see what you're doing.
Nothing to hide.
Right, nothing to hide. Right. This is the tension between privacy and non-privacy. I mean, I can sit around with my cell phone camera. Actually, let me completely turn this around to a completely different topic, but it reminded me of this. I'm reading about a woman in Arizona who's going to get out of jail. She's been on death row all these years. And the only connection is she supposedly confessed 2 guys kidnapped her kid and killed her kid, okay? She supposedly told an investigator that she put him up to it because she wanted $5,000 in life insurance proceeds. And turns out that this investigator has been found by courts in 4 other cases to have fabricated confessions. And he's been found in like 8 other cases to have done other bad things. And so a federal court threw out her death penalty conviction, sent it back for a new trial. Of course, dutifully, the prosecutors are like, well, we still want a prosecutor. We'll just let the jury know that he's, they don't even want to let her go because, well, they never want to let anybody go after they find out they might be innocent. But here's the problem. I'm sort of like, okay, this was, 20 years ago. I think in this day and age, if I was on a jury, and I think that every juror should think like me, of course, that if the police don't have an audio, or at least an audio, but probably a videotape of the statement they want you to consider from the defendant. Now, I understand roadside, I understand on the fly, spur of the moment type thing, okay? But think about, here's the irony. Roadside right now, if the Pennsylvania State Police pull you over on the side of the road and you blurt out that you're speeding because you murdered your wife, it's going to be recorded because the state police officers are wired for sound and their cameras record the interaction, okay? But if they take you back to the barracks and claim that you gave a confession that you killed your wife in the little back room, they always have a reason why there was no recorder or camera running here in Pennsylvania. And so I think if I was on a jury, I would say, hey, if you guys can successfully tape ordinary traffic stops and DUIs roadside, with pretty high quality picture and sound, how come every time somebody supposedly confesses but denies they ever confessed, it always happens in a little room with no other witnesses besides the officer or officers and no camera and no audio recording? And so I would be of the mind that I would want to hear and probably see what's going on before I would accept that the defendant actually confessed, unless, of course, they agree that they confessed or they're not claiming they didn't confess but some other defense. But I just believe we live in a day and age, because I took my cell phone camera out with me yesterday with walking with my son, and I can make high-quality video anywhere and anytime I go, and if I wanted to just take video of people walking around the downtown, I can do the same in this day and age. But for some reason, the police can't get confessions on tape. And I'm not saying that they're not tons of bad officers. But here's the problem. As a juror, how do you know you don't have the bad officer? And so this woman's, wasted 20 years on death row being accused of killing her little baby because some cop lied. Now, most police officers don't lie. Problem is, before you put somebody away for that kind of time and have them sit on death row, I think you need to see video or audio recordings in this day and age with the technology. That's my editorial. What do you think of that?
Innocent until proven guilty.
I know, but here's the problem. You go to court, and the jurors go back, and they go, oh, my God, they say she killed this kid. And then they go, and the police officer says she did it. She said she did it. And they just don't want to believe in their heart of hearts that the police officer could be lying. And so, in my belief, since jurors are so inured to not believe that an officer could lie, just get the confession on tape. I had one time with some state troopers over in Cumberland County, and there was a big issue of what color the car was, okay, whether it was like blue or gray. And I don't mean like that bluish gray. I mean like a bright blue or a dull gray, okay? And they went and found a car that they claimed was the getaway car and took a picture of it. Problem is, it didn't look anything like the car as the woman described. So they trying to connect this car to my client. And the car they're trying to connect to my client is like a light gray, very like a true metallic gray. The car she saw was like that, I don't want to say plum blue, but like a bright blue car. Think of like almost like a primary blue, not quite a royal blue, but getting in that direction. So they show up with a black and white photograph at court, and of course I cross-examine and I go, because I've seen the car, I go, this is, yeah, they're like, it's blue, it's a blue car. I'm like, that photograph's black and white. You say it's blue, yeah. Did you ever take color photo? Yeah, we have color photographs, but we don't have any color. We didn't have any color printers available. Well, the reason they did that is they knew that the car didn't look a darn thing like what the witness described. So I caught him at it, and I, of course, got the judge mad because I told the judge that I could have my secretary deliver one of our inkjet printers from the office down to the state police barracks that evening if they wanted to print it out and bring it back the next day. And the jury was laughing a little bit. And needless to say, the guy did not get convicted at that trial. But long story short, think about that. I mean, that's just, those are the kinds of things the government tries to do. And so you can't trust them all the time. So I just hope jurors understand that. I just don't know how to get in people's minds and get them to understand that the police officers and the defendants and the prosecutors and the defense attorneys are all just human beings. And they're all trying to get you to follow a story, but they're all just as inclined to smooth the edges as anybody else. All right, I'm sure I'm boring you, but...
No, I'm loving it. So I guess the bottom line is, if you got a question of circumstance with the police, don't waste your time. Just call someone like you who knows how to help.
Yeah, it helps. It does. I know. Just the other day, I had somebody I'm like, oh, wait, I'm in DUI court. And I go, it says right here that when they asked you if you were drinking, you said yes. And she's like, yeah, I did say that. It says right here they asked you if you were intoxicated, and you said yes. It's like... She's like, I probably said that. I'm like, well, there you go. I mean, it doesn't. I'm like, you don't know better than to answer that question. And she's like, well, I'm like, I know you were drunk. You weren't thinking straight. It's time to plead guilty. But this makes me laugh because sometimes the things defendants say. The other one was actually somebody said, well, but the person cooperated with the police. I'm like, yeah, people cooperate with the police all the time, and I never understand why. Like when they have a kilo of cocaine in their trunk and the cop says, can I search your car? And they say yes. And you're like, you said yes. Well, I thought if I said no, he'd be suspicious. And I'm like, if you say yes, he's looking. Because if he's asking, he's already suspicious. All right, my friend, I got to go to break. Thanks for coming back for the second hour.
Yep.
All right, 540-0580.
When news happens, we break in. Central Pennsylvania's news leader is WHP Talk Radio 580.
Coldwell Banker Select Professionals are people you can trust. With 8 locations near you, Coldwell Banker Select Professionals are everywhere.
Oh, boy. Remember, don't feed your kid goat milk, at least not in Maine. You'll get yourself in trouble. Some poor woman up there, although I disagree with her on the vaccination thing. She didn't believe in vaccinating her child. She's an idiot in that respect. But on the other hand, it's her right, and you can screw your kids up quite a few different ways, exercising all your rights if you choose. And hey, that's the way she wants to do it. God bless her. On the other hand, though, she was making homemade formula with, let's see here, what was it? I'm just reading an article on her. Goat milk, probiotics. I don't know what that is. That's that stuff in yogurt or some such thing. Whatever, I know what it is, but who knows what it really is. It's one of those, catch-all terms. Vitamins, like vitamins, whatever vitamins are. Something that big industries decided we needed at one point. Flaxseed, which I eat quite a bit of myself, and coconut oil. And I like to get my coconut oil in movie theater popcorn if I can. But nonetheless, you mix all that in with the goat milk to make a healthy formula. And, of course, since it wasn't, a canned formula made by a large corporation or one of the bad, made with bad Chinese milk, the Department of Health and Human Services of Maine had an issue with that because, well, heaven forbid somebody want to do what they want to do. Anyhow, Dan, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hey, Carl, first of all, I'm kind of disappointed that WHP didn't make you the daily feature, the replacement for Bob Durgan. But,
hey,
I'm glad you're still on Saturdays.
Hey, listen, all I'm trying to do is just become the Ken Matthews show lawyer, right? I Facebook friend requested. I'm still waiting for him to get back to me, that dirty. All right, go ahead.
I do have a question. You routinely say that people shouldn't answer a lot of questions when the police are asking them questions. They have those random DUI checkpoints.
Right.
And I've seen video. I've seen your video, and I've seen other videos on there where just people refuse to answer any questions whatsoever. So my question is, if you did that, if you refused to answer the question for a long period of time, if you had been drinking, it would probably lower your blood alcohol levels to the point where, maybe you are legal if you're marginal.
It'll take a while.
Is, how long? Well, you lose, I guess, one drink an hour.
They say, yeah.
Through metabolism, they say. But my question is, if you said the first of all that question, how you doing this evening? Where are you going to? And you're heading north. You say, I'm going north. Where are you coming from? I'm coming from south.
Right.
Most police officers are going to be ticked off almost immediately. Think you're a smart aleck. And when you get to the point, have you been drinking this evening? What if you had a drink? What would your normal response be?
Well, here's my problem.
At what point do you say, I'm not going to answer any more questions from the very first question?
I think it starts off better at the first question. Here's why. Because if you come across as one of those pesky constitutional, freehold, anti-tax, right-wing, tinfoil wearing, colander on the head, black helicopter kind of guys, right? Mm-hmm. Then the fact that you don't answer the alcohol question or you don't answer is there any cocaine in your car question or any of those questions is just you being you. Whereas if you're sort of cooperative to start with and then suddenly they ask you like, well, do you have any marijuana in the car? And you're like, well, I invoked my right. I mean, you're sort of like saying like, okay, I was going to tell you everything until you asked me about something that might be illegal and now I'm going to clam up. Not that he can use that constitutionally, but practically I think you're going to inflame their crime radars. So,
but at what point, I've heard you say this before, and I'm a little foggy on this. At what point do they have the right to stick a breathalyzer in your face and say, blow in this?
They don't have they have to use an official.
You obviously have the right to refuse, which is going to cost you your license.
No. You have the right to refuse the portable breath test, absolutely. And so you have to agree to give. So if an officer says, would you take a breath test, I would say, are you asking me to take an official breath test or are you asking me to take a portable breath test?
What's the difference?
The official one's admissible in court. The portable is not, and you may refuse the portable. PBT.
Okay, so if you think you're marginal, like say for example, this is timely. Everyone's having their fantasy draft right now,
right?
And you get a couple beers and cigars from the beer, your favorite beer and cigar place.
Harrisburg Beer and Cigar, 3842 Union Deposit Road.
You're a big guy like me, north of 200 pounds, and you're on your fourth beer, and you say, "I better quit now."
Right.
And remembering now all of a sudden that it's 0.8 instead of, a 0.08 instead of 0.1. Oh, I'm kind of probably right on the fringe.
Right.
So
drive faster.
Yeah. So if you stall to the point where they decide that they are going to take you to the hospital and draw blood from you, by that time you may just be under the 0.08. My point is, to get to that point, are you have to be knocked down drunk till they just say, you know what, this guy ain't really worth it. Do you ever come into experiences like that, or have you heard of experiences like that? Because it just seems to me that if you're 0.8 is I don't know, my opinion as a family that used to run a bar, 0.8 is kind of almost to the point of harassment.
Well, yeah. Here's the answer. The answer is if your BAC is I had a cop tell me one time he was observing another police officer arrest a girl. And we both knew her. She's friends of both of ours, actually. And so he says she passed the field sobriety test.
Is that in a biblical sense, Carl? Or?
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay,
no, that's even funnier though. That's I was going to say wrong girl, but no, not seriously though. The long story short though is she passed the field sobriety test. She pulled over because she had a headlight out or something like this. And he said, And then at the very end, the guy goes, well, would you be willing to take the portable breath test? And he goes, I was thinking, don't take it. And she said yes. And then she blew a 0.8, whatever, 0.08 something. So the other cop arrested her, And my buddy said, he goes, I kept thinking, if only they knew. He's like, because he had to let her go right up until that point. And at the very end of if she passed the field sobriety test, Point being is at 0.08, 1 or 083 or an 09, most people can drive. They can pass the field sobriety test. They can do everything. They can't pass the portable breath test, though. Mm-hmm. But
the breath test you're talking about is that administered in a police station?
No, that's administered roadside. Yeah, it's a little thing they stick in you blow into it on the roadside.
That's the portable one or the official one?
That's the portable one, yeah. So if she had refused a portable breath test, she would have walked off the scene and not gotten a DUI. So, yeah, that happens quite a bit. You have these scenarios where people are essentially sober, but maybe technically above the legal limit. Here's the other problem. Because we're now a 2 hours of driving state, okay, let's say I have to pick my son up, at 5:30, right? Mm-hmm. So I go, I'm going to go to the bar and have a beer quick. Well, my BAC is not going to go over the legal limit, right? Mm-hmm. But let's assume I didn't have to pick my son up. Mm-hmm. All right, I just have to be somewhere by 5:30, and I whack down 2 quick beers. My BAC could rise to an 08, maybe 20 minutes after I get there, right? So now. Think about if the police had pulled me over and thought maybe I was intoxicated during the time period that they're taking me in, my BAC could be rising. So in the time interval from the time they take me from driving until I could blow a 0.08 when I was only an 05 when I was driving, right?
Okay.
So, but it's within 2 hours of driving, and that's the crime, not what you were when you were driving. So there's a lot of reasons not to give them information, to give them the ability to test you.
Okay. Well, back to that field. I get the portable unit, but you said something about an official breathalyzer. What is that?
That's the official breath test, and that's a device that is certified for use in court. So
okay,
the crafty.
Where do they have those? At the station, or
usually at the station, usually at a booking center, but every once in a while, they'll bring them into the field, and they'll bring them in the field usually for DUI checkpoints. Now,
so they have the official ones at the DUI check.
Sometimes. See, but just don't assume. You can't assume here. I guess what the lesson is it could be a portable breath test they're asking about, or it could be official breath test. Here's the other problem. Some police departments will just ask you in the car, like, are you going to take the official blood test? And you'd be like, no, or yes or no there. Some of them will say you refused in the field, okay? And that's why my question is, are you willing to take a breath test, Mr. Oninger? And I'd say, are you asking about a portable breath test or an official breath test admissible in court? If he says portable breath test, I'm going to tell him to shove it up his hoo-hoo. And if he says official breath test, I'm going to say, why, of course, sir. And then maybe someday, if you guys want, I'll show you. I could do a little. Get me an Intoxilizer 5000 and a camera, and I'll show you guys how to defeat it while giving an official sample.
Okay, I'll watch that video. I mean, I'm not. I don't make a habit of drinking and driving. In my younger days, I'll admit I was guilty, and I was just curious about that because I was thinking the same thing you thought. If you leave the bar after having 2 beers, your blood alcohol actually raises over time.
Yeah.
So while you were actually operating the vehicle, you may not have been either intoxicated or legally intoxicated either. But have you ever caught a case where they actually lied to the client about the whether it's official or unofficial breath?
Yeah, I get. See, they don't lie about it because nobody asks about it. And they rely on the fact that most people think you have to take the breath test, okay? So when I ask clients, why did you give them the portable breath test? Why did you do it? They all say, but Carl, I have to take the breath test or I was going to lose my license. And I'm like, yeah, that's what you've been told, but you're not teasing those two things out. So they don't need to lie. It's like a state cop told me one time, he said that NYPD Blue was the best show ever because every time he'd go in an interview room with somebody, they thought he was going to go like Sipowicz and beat him up. And
can you demand a blood test as opposed to the breathalyzer?
You have no right to pick it, the official test.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? So what people's expectations are is that they have to take the breath test. So if I'm a police officer, I can say, here, I have a portable breath test. Would you like to take it? Or here, I have a breathalyzer. Would you blow in it? And most people just assume that's the one that they can't refuse.
But the official one, do they have to have a reasonable suspicion to give you the official one?
No, they only have to separate issues. They have to have reasonable suspicion to pull you over. They have to have probable cause to arrest you and take you to the unit. But they only have to have a reasonable basis under the refusal law. And so even if a police officer doesn't have probable cause and your arrest is illegal, you can still lose your license for the refusal.
But back to the woman you were talking about earlier, her case.
Yeah.
She agreed to a portable breathalyzer. Had she said no, I want the official breathalyzer.
No, she shouldn't have said no. She shouldn't have said that. She should have just said no. I won't take a portable breath test. They would not have had probable cause to arrest her.
If they had an official one back in the car, she would have been responsible to take it.
If they ask you to take that, yes, because they have a reasonable. But they didn't have probable cause to arrest her at that point.
But they could have forced her to take the official one.
And right, and their lack of probable cause is not a defense in the civil loss of your license.
Okay.
Yeah, it sucks.
it is confusing, and that's why I wanted to ask, because I've heard you say many times, don't answer any more questions than you have to.
Yeah, and before I go to break, let me explain something. I'm not encouraging anybody to drink and drive, but let me give you the nightmare scenario. You're pulled over, you've got 2 beers in you, they think you're drunk, you're not, but you give them enough information to arrest you. They get you back to the station. They realize that your BAC may be on the low side, so they take your blood, and while they're doing it, they have your blood tested, and they find metabolite of marijuana in there from a joint you smoked 3 weeks before. Or they find some of your prescription whatever drug in there that you're lawfully prescribed and which doesn't really affect you very much but could affect other people. The next thing you know, you're either going to be convicted of DUI or spending thousands of dollars on experts to prevent being convicted of a DUI when you were never impaired at all. All right, got to go to break, boss.
Hey, thanks.
All right. Well, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Oh, boy. So, Vin Diesel's going to be doing the voice of I think it's Groot for a upcoming Marvel movie, and I was just thinking like of all the actors who could be a voice talent, right? I mean, the guy can hardly talk.
Be like Arnold Schwarzenegger doing something.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, I don't want to go see the Riddick movie. Don't get me wrong. I like the whole sequence with Riddick. It's pretty cool, and I kind of buy into the Vin Diesel franchises, but I'm just laughing about like the voice of all the smooth narrators. They must well pick me. Jason, you're on the air.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Carl. How are you today?
Good. What's going on?
Well, I had a question. I'm a little confused because about 2 weeks ago, my fiance was involved in a car accident out in Carlisle Pike, and her vehicle was a total loss, completely. She ran into somebody at a stoplight. She had a bit of a medical emergency. She had heart palpitations prior to going, and she says that she feels as though she may have lost consciousness for a brief second. Now, when police arrived on scene, she still hadn't moved from her vehicle. She was in a state of shock when she was woken up. I have the witnesses there that are on the report that basically made statements to that effect that she was in the car, she wouldn't move. She was just completely, in a state of shock. Well, they arrived on scene, and I guess they got her out of the vehicle, and when they talked to her, they basically handcuffed her and put her in the vehicle. I got the police accident report back, and it says that she was intoxicated because they took her and they drew blood. However, they took her down to Cumberland County after they drew her blood, and within an hour she was released. And I haven't received any further notification from the township as to whether or not she's pending any charges or anything like that. I mean, she had just left work. She was within minutes of her place of employment when she was actually involved in that car accident. And I was just confused. How long does something like that normally take?
And what do you mean, like in terms of getting back the results?
Yeah, to find out whether or not she's going to be charged.
Well, you have 2 years to charge you with a misdemeanor under the statute of limitations, okay?
Okay.
For DUI, first of all. Second of all, it takes sometimes weeks to get the blood results back.
Okay.
So I always tell people, if you haven't heard in a month, you're probably not going to get charged. And if you haven't heard in a few months, then you're probably definitely not going to get charged. But unless 2 years have gone by, then you're absolutely never going to get charged. But in reality, it's usually within a couple of weeks. Usually within 10 to 14 days, you would know.
Well, that's what I was assuming, because from my understanding, she had just left her place of employment within minutes. And she had told me that she had a medical condition. Her heart was acting up, and then it was beating real fast. She had like a mini panic attack, and she was trying to hit the brake, and it inadvertently hit the accelerator.
Right. Well, then she probably shouldn't have any alcohol in her system. She's probably going to be okay, right?
No, she had no alcohol, no illegal substances in her system.
So once they get that back, they're probably just looking at it. Here's what's happening. I mean, I understand her explanation. The police, from the police aspect, is they're just looking at it as suspicious accident, right?
Okay.
You know, it's probably well lit, everything's functioning, and she just plows into somebody.
Right. And I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that she was completely, immobilized and she was in a state of shock. But I just felt that, instead of getting her, if she was ranting or raving, they probably should have taken her to get medically evaluated or something, versus taking her into custody, drawing blood, and bringing her to the county lockup for an hour and releasing her.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They probably should have her cleared by an ambulance first.
Right. Well, she says that she wasn't. There was no ambulance on scene. She was basically taken immediately into custody.
Yeah. Now, I understand. Doesn't sound like it was handled right. Hopefully, nothing will come of it. If you need any follow-up, you let me know, okay?
All right, will do. Thank you.
Cross your fingers. 540-0580. Mike, you want to talk about summary offense?
Yeah, how you doing, Carl? Thanks for taking my call. Summary offense, would that stop someone from getting a concealed carry permit?
Summary offense should not affect that in any way, shape, or form.
All right, thanks a lot. This is great. That's the only
say should not. Yeah, if a sheriff did refuse you on the basis of a summary, it would be a strong case to look at. Now, obviously, if you have 15 summary harassments or something on your record, it may start to get to a point where a sheriff may say, under the general fitness clause, the fact that you have racked up 15 summaries in 10 years is a little unusual, and I'm not going to give you a pistol permit. All right?
All right.
All right, man. 540-0580. Mike, the other Mike.
What's going on, my friend?
How are you?
Pretty good, man. What about yourself?
Not bad, not bad.
So, got to talk to you about some eternal things.
What's going on?
Let's talk about God's moral law. I want to see what you say. First off...
It's a law show. But go ahead.
And I think I have the answer, but I want to hear it from you. What's the deal with the people having a problem with the Ten Commandments in the courtroom? Do you think it causes a hostile environment between the judges and lawyers and everybody?
No, but let me explain it this way. If you go to the United States Supreme Court, they have the Ten Commandments hanging up there, okay?
Yes.
They also have a picture of Muhammad up there.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's new to me, okay.
And if you go to the Dauphin County Courthouse, you're going to find all the different lawgivers, many of whom were religious figures throughout history.
Right.
Many of whom are not Judeo-Christian, carved right into the doors.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And the reason you're going to find those sorts of things is because we in law like to celebrate the history of law, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that if you want to look at the Ten Commandments from a non-mystical standpoint for a minute, okay?
Well, what do you mean non-mystical?
Non-mystical. Let's just look at them.
Non-mystical.
Right. Let's just look at them from the standpoint of you shouldn't kill, don't steal, try not to get too excited about your neighbor's wife,
right?
When you're standing out your second-story window looking over the privacy fence, those sorts of things. Right. So, long story short, it's a basic set of how to get along in a society. And
sure.
Hammurabi, and then Confucius, and Muhammad, they were all lawgivers in many ways, and they gave rules and prescribed solutions for society. Okay, so and Moses and the Ten Commandments. Now forget about the origins of those stones for a second,
right?
And just talk about how it was done. So, long story short. I don't have a problem with the Ten Commandments, and I tell you, most lawyers probably would not have a problem with the Ten Commandments being hung as relics of law.
Right.
The problem we run into is when people decide to hang up the Ten Commandments, for instance, and say, we're going to hang the Ten Commandments because, we're a Christian nation and we need to remember where our laws come from. Well, the answer is go to our Supreme Court again, and you're going to see Muhammad up there. You're going to see the Ten Commandments, and there's a few other the great lawgivers. And it's done that's truly a secular display. In other words, it's not.
I got some more on this, so don't cut me off. Can you hold me over or what?
Yeah, go quick.
All right, well, look, here's the thing. Now I want to go to the next step here to make my point. Now, let me ask you this. In your life, have you ever lied about anything, whether it be a little white lie or anything like that?
No. Oh, I did it again. Shoot. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Now, have you ever stolen a pen from some office that you've ever worked in?
Well, I wouldn't say stolen. I've always intended to give it back.
Okay, so now you just admitted that you're a lying thief. Now that brings me to my next point. When we talk about eternity and we talk
about
ask me
about
God's
adultery.
law, and I understand what you're saying about how we get along in our society. How do you tell and plead your case to a holy God unless you are sinless perfection? Why he should let anyone into the kingdom of God because nobody's perfect. Now, what are you going to tell him then?
I'm only as good as the guy that made me. That's what I'm going to tell him.
Well, that's not. That doesn't mean he's going to look at that. He's going to say, "Yeah, but I sent my son Christ to pay the price for your sin."
All right.
So now, what are you going to do? Now, come on, I got you squirming now.
I got your theory, Mike.
Now?
All right. God bless you. I got to go to break. He's going to say, I got him. He hung up on me. All right. Hey, welcome back. First of all, don't forget to stop in at Harrisburg Beer and Cigars. Tell them Carl Rominger sent you. It's over at 3842 Union Deposit Road here in Harrisburg. Best selection of booze, mainly beer, right? Although these beer places these days have good, all these crazy other drinks. In Pennsylvania, you can't have, wine or wine coolers. We have all these malt, funny drinks you can drink. So anyhow, stop over and check them out. But see the humidor. I just want to hear some. I want somebody who's gone over there to call in here one day and describe their estimation of that humidor as well. If you need to liquidate an estate or business, I recommend you call RJ Gold Auctions. He can buy, outright, or sell your items at auction. RJ Gold can be reached at 645-0061. He purchases outright items such as medals, pins, patches, tokens, awards, badges, and most historical collectibles. He can pay you right away. RJ Gold, 645-0061. He's at 3712 North 6th Street in Harrisburg. Plan on attending RJ's awesome auction Sunday, September 29th at 1 p.m. The American Legion, Harrisburg. PA license auctioneer number AU005798. My tongue decided to do a calisthenic there briefly. Mike, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. You want to talk about York?
Yes. I get to follow the Bible guy from Lebanon. He's on the airwaves all the time. I hear that guy first thing in the morning. He's all the time. Tim and Jay from Lebanon. I hear them 8 o'clock in the morning on WHP. And, well, that's not what I called about. The York District Attorney, where that officer from Shrewsbury was plummeting that girl that was handcuffed in the back seat there.
Yeah.
How pictures are worth 1,000 words, but how did he come up with that was a reasonable,
Listen, I had a case in Lancaster years ago where, and of course it's all been settled up and I can't really talk about it anymore, but people may remember involving the police and a girl, and we've had other ones, and it's just funny. They talk about circling the fences or circling the wagons, so to speak. And it seems like law enforcement will always come to the conclusion that the force was necessary or seemed appropriate. Here's the reason. I mean, it's all about social control, right? If the district attorney were to admit that the police simply acted brutally, well, then maybe other police act brutally too. And if we were to admit that police officers,
bad cops and good cops, though, just like in any profession,
but they want, and this is the problem. You go into court, and all the jury starts with the proposition that the police officer must be telling the truth, because that's what they want to believe. Our society requires certain beliefs work. So let me ask it this way: but
the difference was they had a video.
Well, I understand, but this is the point. This is why they're not going to admit this. So let me ask it this way: we all know that some school teachers are child molesters, right?
Right.
Small percentage of them, but why? How do you know that your teacher isn't molesting your kid, right? How do you know your kid's teacher isn't a child molester? Well, you just got to believe it. So you have to, in your mind, just assume that the herd mentality or whatever, that the odds of that particular teacher being the child molester is low or impossible or never going to happen to my kid. So as a result, we just make assumptions. Well, if it was in the news every day that school teachers were child molesters and that they're frequently molesting people and you hear about it all the time, even if it isn't true, right?
Right.
You may come to the conclusion I shouldn't send my kid to school because teachers are molesters. So your tolerance for it will change based on how prevalent you are led to believe it is. So one thing that law enforcement and prosecutors and the government works very hard on making sure you know is that cops rarely lie, cops rarely beat anybody up. That's an aberrant, once-in-a-million thing. Or is it really?
Yeah, but I understand that, Carl, but when you have a video, that doesn't lie.
You can't, no, because most people will never see the video.
Well, they were showing on
most people still never,
and every other station there.
And they'll explain it and say it was straight.
That video.
I guess here's the problem. If you're cheating on your wife, okay, and you come home and she says, you cheated on me, you say no. And she says, but I smell perfume on you. And you say no. And she says, but I see lipstick. No. If you say no enough times and pretend you didn't cheat, some people she'll simply just go, I guess he didn't cheat on me.
Right.
Okay? The district attorney is counting on the fact that he is going to say nothing happened. That was inappropriate. Move on. Move along. That's in their best interest. I understand what you're saying. It seems disingenuous to you, but through the filter of the public and the media and how it will all play out, most people will conclude that nothing must have happened or the DA would have done something.
Well, that's a bad assumption. And how much you want to bet that civil suit that they have?
How much you want to bet they get a ton of money?
Yeah, I was going to say, how much you want to bet that they settle, the police force settles? I
had video. I had video in a case with a girl accused of felonies that were completely made up. They didn't even exist on the video because the police beat her up, so they were making up an excuse, okay?
Right.
Did the district attorney drop the charges, even though there was a video?
Probably not.
Not until the very 11th hour. not to out trying to get her to agree to, plead to all kinds of things first.
I just think there's bad cops and good cops. When you got video proof of a bad one, he's a rotten apple. He should be gone like in any other profession.
But I'm trying to tell you that they don't want to admit that bad ones exist because they're trying to put people in jail for years, right?
Right.
When you go to court, if you were a juror and you legitimately came to believe that bad cops are as prevalent as bad anything else is, right?
Right.
Would you feel real comfortable about throwing somebody in jail for years at a time based on one guy's word?
Probably not.
Right. So we have to maintain this false sense of perfection. Welcome to social control. Do you think that police officers show up in schools to give lectures to kids on safety because the government wants to spend a lot of time on kids' safety, or do you think it's part of indoctrinating people to law enforcement at an early age?
Probably indoctrination.
It's all about indoctrination, my friend.
Well, I just hope when that guy goes up for re-election, people remember that.
Well, I know, and they won't.
And they were saying, you have to watch the whole 9-minute video, maybe to understand why he came to that conclusion. Well, because from what I understand, she was calling him every name in the book. She's bipolar and drunk and all that. But still, cops still have to. They got to be,
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's
they're in a position of power there.
I've been involved in cases where police officers pummeled somebody because of what they said, and obviously it didn't turn out well for the police officer at the end of the day because the law basically says, yeah, most people you're arresting are going to be disorderly or a little crazy or drunk or whatever, and you can't expect them to be complete angels, nor are you supposed to react to that.
It comes with the job.
That's right. Now, on the other hand, I don't begrudge a police officer the legitimate use of force or even the mistaken use of force if he legitimately believes he needs it.
Well, and neither do I.
But I can tell you, as a defense attorney, you listen to clients, and there are certain officers that you hear again and again and again, right? Mm-hmm. Where I find it hard to believe that 20 people would name the same guy from the same force as the person who roughed them up on the roadside in the middle of nowhere, right?
Right.
You start to go... you never know where. I've had other clients tell me they were treated badly by a police officer, and I go, that's not possible because I know who that guy is, and I know how he usually treats people. But anyhow, long story short is most of them are good, but there's more bad ones than the government wants you to know about. 540-0580. No, we're out of time, I guess. Okay, well, next week then. You write that number down. Law office number 241-6070, 241-6070. Email me. Go to RomingerLaw.com. Look me up on Facebook. We have room for a few more friends. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.